what is the DRP, the Disaster Recovery Plan, and what is the BCP, the Business Continuity Plan, and the differences between each. You know, technology is great, but it's not great when that technology fails, and worse, when that data is lost and cannot be recovered. A lot of this has to do with the sort of strategy that the business has in place around how to restore data in the event of a disaster or a significant data loss. It's essential that data is secure, it's regularly backed up, and there is a strategy in place on how to recover that data and how to recover the systems if any of those systems should fail. So it's imperative, regardless of the size of the business, whether if it's a small, a medium, or a large, that there is a process, a plan in place that overlines essentially what happens in the event of a disaster for a business. The BCP and the DRP will essentially outline plans and strategies and steps that a business needs to take to be able to recover services, recover all operations if a disaster should happen, or if there is a significant data loss. So the BCP in its simplest form deals with the steps and resources and requirements required to continue business operations if a disaster was to happen, and also outlines the plan to be able to restore business operations if there is a significant loss to the business or significant harm financially. It covers the where and how to recover operations and ensures that every department can continue to be operational during a disaster, and that every department can be restored to its original form once the disaster has finished. It doesn't deal directly with technology, but it deals with everything else around it. The BCP will outline the communication channels and the contact methods during a disaster. Who do we contact during a disaster, and how do we contact them? Who are our IT vendors, our IT software, our IT hardware vendors, network vendors, perhaps your service providers for your internet links, for your phone links. So they're going to be tying very close together around the communication method and who these contact people are going to be. The DRP describes the method and the strategy a business will implement to ensure that data and IT systems are protected, adequately backed up, and are recoverable in the event of a disaster. If your physical hardware is damaged, how do I restore this hardware? Where do I go? Do I have to contact third parties? What sort of hardware do I need to procure? How do I reconfigure all of this hardware, and how do I set it up to be able to restore all of that data back onto my systems? So think about true, real disaster scenarios. Flooding, for example, may need a different response to be able to restore operations than if you are cyber attacked. Flooding may require hardware to be repurchased, procured, and replaced. In a cyber attack, it could just be a software related thing. Your hardware may not be damaged, for example. So within each of these scenarios, a different amount of generally technical people will be involved to restore these operations. Different people from the server and the systems teams, from storage, from networking, database people, people who work in development if there are applications and programs that are damaged. So each of these guys will work together to be able to restore systems depending on the disaster scenario. So if data is damaged, if systems are damaged, then perhaps the systems guys will be responsible for going and procuring new servers. The network guys will be involved for acquiring new switches, new routers, new firewalls. Once all that equipment is configured, everything should be operational from a back end. We then get backup people involved to be able to go and restore data from those backups. We need people such as the database and applications people to go in, test and make sure that the apps and the databases are functioning, and essentially that the applications and the business systems are operational as before the disaster happened. So incident types, responses, and recovery options need to be outlined in that DRP. Each scenario, each different type of disaster should be outlined with the relevant response, with the relevant recovery option for each of those responses, who will be getting involved. Now, further to that, that DRP needs to have a committee of people that are reviewing and are actively involved in writing that disaster recovery plan, making sure that it is updated regularly, perhaps annually or biannually, and making sure that regular DR tests are performed, because there's no point in having a disaster recovery plan outlined if you're not regularly testing it. The DRP and the BCP work hand in hand. The BCP from a essentially overall business strategy, the DRP from a technology component. The DRP deals with the technology, how we will recover systems, how we will recover the data to be able to aid the overall BCP strategy.